My name is Adam. This is Oliver. We've worked together for 20 years now, and Bandage, the Knife, Not the Wound is our latest project, which we're showing at Kettle's yard.
People ask us, what does it mean? It's actually a quote it's a piece of work that was made by Joseph Beuys. It was just a very small sculpture. It was a knife, and he'd wrapped a bandage around the blade. And the way I interpret it is, he was saying, let's look at the causes of violence rather than the effect. So I think that was the kind of starting point.
What's interesting about it for me, I was thinking about it the other day, is that Ollie and I started doing documentary photography, and we were in a jail, a maximum security jail, where they used to bandage literally knives to ensure the depth of the incision into people, so whether somebody was killed or whether somebody was just kind of hurt a little bit. So it was a much more kind of...
Oh my God, I forgot about that. There's also the surrealist, you know that famous surrealist quote, to a knife without a blade that's lost its handle, which is something that's completely inept. There are all these kind of ideas about knives and blades and bandages, but the work that we're showing in the galleries that's opening tonight, it's a series of photographs and montages, photo montages really, that are printed onto cardboard. And we just really enjoyed printing these images onto cardboard because it's such a poor kind of, it's just such a rubbishy kind of material. It has no value. And it's ubiquitous, you know, cardboard boxes are everywhere. Every time you buy something on Amazon, it arrives in a cardboard box. And we teach in Hamburg in an art school, and we run a photography, like a traditional photography lab. So we're always buying all these chemicals and paper, and it all comes in these boxes, and we just kind of unfolding these boxes and printing onto the insides of them. And it's just quite liberating because photographs tend to be so kind of precious and delicate, and you know, there's something just very throwaway about these images on the boxes.
At the same time, there's something so throwaway about images now. You know, this, I think the figure is 13 trillion images were produced in the last year. And so for us, these images in a form of a kind of dialogue between one another are images that have kind of haunted us over these 20 years. And the images that just kind of won't let us alone, you know. So there's images that of our families, of our children, of just kind of moments in history that, again, like really, really don't seem to be able to kind of leave us alone, or we can't leave them alone.
I think we've been calling ourselves photographers for 20 years, but being a photographer keeps changing, and the landscape keeps shifting, and with digital photography and Instagram and Facebook and just this kind of gesture of posting, the whole nature of what it means to make a photograph and to distribute a photograph has changed. It used to be that the way images were distributed was very controlled. It's now much more democratic, seemingly, but when you start kind of really looking under the surface, you realize that every time you put an image out there, you're actually producing capital for big corporations like Instagram and Facebook. And the image itself is kind of empty. It's the metadata behind the image that's valuable. And it's almost like a piece of market research for these companies. So being a photographer suddenly feels, or making images and putting them out, suddenly feels much more complex.
And at the same time, it's quite interesting to see what happens with images when you put them inside a white cube like this, you know? Because suddenly a kind of badly printed image on a shitty cardboard box is given some kind of value in terms of its, you know, existence, both in terms of the market and in terms of cultural value. So it's quite interesting, this kind of...
But it's quite lovely that we're showing that work here, because famously Kettle's yard is where all the Alfred Wallace works are, all the Alfred Wallace paintings, and he, you know, he's this painter from St. Ives that did all of his paintings on just pieces of hardboard that he found, and we wanted to show this work here as a kind of reference, almost to recall Alfred Wallace, and to think about how this kind of piece of detritus suddenly becomes elevated when it's placed in this gallery setting.